Hi, I'm Kaylin Thornton here with Rocky Mountain Clay, bringing you a couple tips and tricks on the best way to wedge. I'm going to show you two different techniques today, the two easiest ways for beginners to start wedging clay. When you want to start wedging, I would say it kind of depends on what you're working with. Fresh out of the bag clay is supposed to be de-aired, which means it doesn't have chance of air bubbles in there. However, unless you're going to throw the entire chunk or the entire bag at a time, you're going to want to wedge pieces together. When I cut a piece off of the block, instead of cutting a wide horizontal slab, I usually end up cutting off more of a rectangle, because when I pack this down, it's less likely to overlap itself and create air bubbles within the clay. So instead of cutting off a slice like this, where it's wide and flat, I will cut off a piece more vertically, so it's a little more kind of tall and narrow, and it's less likely that I trap air bubbles in that when I start packing it into a ball. All right, so I've got my clay weighed out. Okay, this will be 5 pounds of clay together, and because I'm going to stick these two together, I'm going to want to wedge this. Okay, so I'm going to stick it together. I usually will kind of pound it on my table a few times just to get it into the right shape. And this is a plaster wedging table. Plaster helps kind of pull some of the moisture out of the clay. Okay, start by packing your clay into a ball. Okay, method number one, I call the ram's head method. I'm going to put my hands together like this, kind of with my thumbs together. I'm going to push my palms into the clay and wrap my fingers around. I'm going to push down into the table, pull it back towards me, replace my hands on the sides with my thumbs close together, push down and into the table. And as I do that, I kind of rotate my wrist backwards. I'll show you again. Okay, and the faster you get, I usually don't remove my hands. I just let the clay rock back and keeping my hands on the sides as I push in. And that allows, as you wedge, a little better control, so you don't have to reach up, replace your hands, push down, reach up, replace your hands, push down. And like anything in pottery, this takes practice, and the more you do it, the better you get. I'd recommend wedging your clay 30 to 40 times, which seems like a lot, but that's a great way to make sure you are not getting any air in your clay as you work with it. Okay, and the reason they call it the ram's head method, then when you're done, you can kind of see the face of the ram here and the horns as they start to curl over here. My students think it looks more like a praying mantis, and there are his lips. You can choose what it looks like. Second method is called the conch shell. So once again, I'm going to pack my clay into a ball. This method is harder, so I would start with ram's head. Once you get the hang of it, you can try this one. This one has more of a spiraling motion. Okay, I'm going to replace my hands just like I started with conch shell or with ram's head. Hands on the side. I'm going to push down into the clay, but I'm going to extend my right arm as I push. Okay, as I lift it back up, I'm going to reach around with my left hand, turn it in place, and as I turn it, I rotate my right hand again, push down, rotate into the table. Okay. Once again, I'd recommend you do this about 30 times. As you finish, you'll start to see how the end is starting to spiral, and this end stays wide. Okay, what you have to be careful of though is if I spread this apart, see how there's a gap right here? We want to avoid things like that. So I'm not done wedging this. Once you have wedged your clay 30 times, pack it back into a ball, take it over to your wheel, and you're ready to start throwing. Thank you for watching this demo on wedging. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Couple reminders for you about wedging. Remember, fresh out of the bag clay should be de-aired from the factory. But unless you're throwing the whole bag, wedging is going to be needed. Only because when you cut off a piece of clay, you're going to want to shape it into a ball. And if you just shape it straight from the bag, you take a chance on trapping some air underneath the folds of the clay. And how you cut it from the bag matters, because the wider and flatter it is, the more likely it is to cup around and trap air within that piece of clay. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to check out Mr. Teapots on Instagram. I'm Kaylin Thornton with Rocky Mountain Clay. We'll see you next time.